A 3-year-old girl sat in silence at a roadside diner, her eyes searching, her lips sealed, and her tiny hand quietly signaling something no one else could see. People came and went, unaware that a silent plea for help was unfolding right in front of them. No one noticed, except one man. A former Marine, hardened by war but softened by instinct, saw what others missed. A subtle motion, a quiet signal, a cry that didn't make a sound. What he did next would shatter the quiet, uncover a horrifying truth, and ultimately save a life. But here's the question. If you had been there, would you have seen the signal? Before we move on, please let us know where you're listening from, and please subscribe to our channel. The late afternoon sun painted the Kansas sky with strokes of amber and gold as Highway 400 hummed quietly outside Carolyn's roadside cafe. Inside, the air was still, broken only by the occasional clatter of cutlery or the soft thrum of the old HVAC unit struggling against the chill. Daniel Hayes, a stoic former Marine with 18 years of service behind him, walked in carrying a weathered duffel bag. He had the kind of presence that spoke without words, his spine too straight, his eyes too alert, his breath too measured. He ordered a ham sandwich and black coffee he didn't really want. Habit, routine. It gave his hands something to do. At a nearby table, a little boy named Noah ran laps with a toy car, his laughter briefly lifting the diner's silence. But Daniel's attention wasn't on the boy, it was on a girl in the corner. 3, maybe 4 years old. Curly hair, pale blue dress, skin like warm earth. She sat next to a sharply dressed man with icy eyes in a gray suit. The man, Travis Mercer, never looked at her, never touched her, never spoke. He just read a thick book as if she didn't exist. And that's what triggered Daniel's instincts. No one takes a child to a roadside diner and then treats her like luggage. The girl caught Daniel's gaze. Slowly, she lifted her hand, a tiny fist opening and closing 3 times. A silent SOS. Daniel watched her again. Another signal, clear, deliberate. Carolyn, the diner's owner, a sturdy woman with faded eyes and a flower-streaked apron, set his plate down. He asked, slow and careful, that little girl, "Has she eaten?" Carolyn frowned. No. Sat there quiet as a mouse. "I thought she was crying earlier, but I wasn't sure." Daniel nodded and returned to his seat. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a red candy, walked over to the table. "She reminds me of my niece," he said to Travis. "Mind if I offer her a candy?" Travis didn't even look up. "She's allergic." But Daniel saw it. The slight recoil when Travis spoke. The fear in the girl's body. A third time. The girl signaled. Back behind the counter, Daniel leaned toward Carolyn. "Call the sheriff. Now." Carolyn stared. "Are you sure? I'm a Marine." That girl gave a nonverbal SOS signal. Not once. 3 times. She didn't argue. She dialed. On the other end, Chief Dana Wallace of Sedgwick County answered. She listened carefully as Daniel took the phone. "Name's Daniel Hayes. I can provide military ID. Suspected abduction. White male, blonde, gray suit. Girl, 3 years old, light brown skin, pale blue dress." Chief Wallace didn't hesitate. "We're on our way." Minutes passed. The diner returned to stillness. Then the front door creaked. Travis stood, gripping the girl's wrist. "Let's go," he whispered. She didn't scream, just looked at Daniel, her eyes screaming instead. Daniel stood, blocking the door. "You taking her somewhere?" "Back to Iowa," Travis answered, cold. "Now move." "She doesn't want to go," Daniel repeated, his voice calm but unshakable. "The police are already on their way. You try to leave now, and it's only going to go worse for you. Don't make this worse, for her or for yourself." Travis's hand tightened around the girl's wrist, his knuckles whitening. Her whimper was barely audible, but it cut through the air like glass cracking under pressure. Then, suddenly, Travis's other hand moved, fast, sharp, his intention to strike clear and cruel. But Daniel had been trained for worse. His hand shot up, intercepting Travis's wrist mid-swing. "That's enough," Daniel said, his voice lower now, full of gravity. At that exact moment, a flare of red and blue lights exploded through the windows. The distant screech of tires grew louder as a cruiser skidded to a stop just outside the diner, headlights slicing through the growing dark. Officer Kevin Delgado entered first, followed by Chief Wallace. They took in the scene with trained eyes. "Sir, step away from the child." Travis hesitated. His eyes darted around the room, measuring the distance between himself and the door, between the officers and the girl. Then, with a sudden movement, he turned and tried to bolt. But Daniel didn't let him. Travis tried to shove past, but Daniel stood firm, his feet grounded like stone. Chief Wallace stepped forward, hand resting lightly on her holstered sidearm. "Don't make this worse," she warned, voice cool but commanding. Amaya, in the chaos, stepped backward, her small frame trembling but steady. She reached for Officer Delgado's outstretched hand, a hand that remained still, low, and patient, like a dock waiting for a drifting boat. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his. She held it, and for the first time since she entered the diner, her body relaxed. She was safe. At the police station, Vanessa, Amaya's mother, arrived, breathless, eyes red. She called out, "Amaya, it's Mommy." But Amaya didn't run into her arms. She just stared. Not with hatred, but with confusion, detachment. Trauma had built a wall that time and distance alone couldn't break down. Vanessa froze mid-step, her outstretched arms dropping slightly as she took in her daughter's hollow gaze. Rachel stood quietly to the side, exchanging a glance with Daniel, one that said everything without words. The reunion, while hoped for, had not come easy. Later that night, back at his motel room, Daniel received a handwritten letter slipped under his door. The envelope was plain, but the slanted handwriting across the front read his name with care. He opened it slowly. "You didn't just save Amaya, you saved me. I once thought about disappearing to protect her. I figured if I vanished, he'd stop hurting her. That maybe if I became invisible, she'd have a better chance. But you stayed when no one else did. You stood when I couldn't, and because of that, we're both still here." The trial gripped Wichita, drawing attention not just from local reporters, but from state outlets and advocacy groups who packed the courtroom benches. Travis's lawyer, Scott Renner, a seasoned defense attorney with a reputation for flipping narratives, claimed the entire case was a misunderstanding. He argued that Travis had legal guardianship, that this was a complex custody matter made worse by a viral video and emotional testimony. But then Vanessa took the stand. "He isolated us, beat me, controlled everything. He erased my contact with friends, with my own mother. I wasn't allowed to speak unless spoken to, and when I tried to leave, he threatened Amaya." The room fell utterly silent. Jurors leaned forward. Reporters stopped scribbling. Everyone listened. Daniel testified. "I know the look of a child in danger. I've seen it in war zones." Amaya showed it with her eyes. The court viewed a TikTok video from Brianna Miles. It showed the moment Daniel blocked the door. That video broke the internet, and the case wide open. The judge denied bail without hesitation, citing the gravity of the charges, the strength of the evidence, and the risk of flight. Two deputies approached Travis, who stood stiff and emotionless. They clasped the cold metal cuffs around his wrists, securing them with deliberate finality. As he was led away from the courtroom, he didn't glance at the judge or his lawyer. But as he passed by Daniel and Vanessa, his eyes lingered, dark, bitter, defiant. Justice, while not complete, had taken its first full step. Days later, Daniel sat at a park bench, planning to leave town. Amaya sat beside him. Quiet, she handed him a red candy. "Can you fly?" she asked. "No," he replied. "But I was fast enough to catch you." She smiled. Just a little. A new children's shelter opened in Wichita, the Willow Haven Center. A red coat hung on a hook. Children's drawings lined the walls. Rachel asked Daniel, "Will you stay? Be our security advisor?" Not a soldier, just someone at the door. Daniel didn't answer at first. Then Amaya came out, pigtails bouncing with each small, determined step. She reached up and grabbed his hand. "Just don't disappear," she said, her voice soft but anchored in something deeper, a plea, a hope, maybe even trust. Daniel looked down at her, and for a moment he didn't see the chaos, the courtroom, or the headlines. He saw a second chance. He didn't. A single red candy, a trembling hand, a small act. It changed everything. And somewhere out there, another child waits to be seen. Would you have noticed her silent signal? Sometimes being a hero means you simply don't look away. Please let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below.